My mother-in-law's silver spoon hit the rim of her porcelain plate with a shrill clink. The sound cut through the heavy air of the Sunday family dinner like a knife. 7 days. Only 7 days since I said I do at St. Patrick's Cathedral. The rice from our wedding could still be caught between the cobblestones of Greenwich Village. And here I was, already seated at the dining table of the Park Avenue apartment, feeling each stare weigh more than the last. Catherine, my new mother-in-law, set the spoon down carefully. She wasn't looking at her plate, nor at the half-eaten roast chicken, her dark eyes so much like Ethan's, but without a trace of his warmth, were fixed directly on me. Chin-lifted lips painted an intense red, forming a firm line. The whole family was there, Ethan by my side, his brother Jason and his wife on the other side of the table, and the widowed Aunt Teresa at the end. "Erica," Catherine began, and her voice was as soft as velvet, but with an edge we all recognized. "Now that the wedding madness is over and we're back to normal, there's a practical matter we need to discuss." Ethan put down his fork. "Mom, can't it wait? We're eating." "This is precisely the moment," she said, not taking her eyes off me. "In this house we are clear about things. Erica, darling, this is my home." She paused, letting the words float over the scent of rosemary as if it were a revelation. We all knew the house was hers. Her husband Ethan's father left it to her when he died 10 years ago. It was her sanctuary, her kingdom. She mentioned it at least 3 times per visit. "And since it's my house," she continued, raising her voice slightly to silence any possible interruption, "my rules apply. You and my son are living here. You're just starting out, and in this life nothing is free." Jason coughed, staring intently at his wine. His wife Lauren tensed like a violin string. Aunt Teresa sighed, a sound of infinite weariness. "Catherine, please," Teresa murmured. "No, Teresa, this is important. Erica, again my name, like a dart. If you want to continue living under this roof, you'll have to contribute. You have your job, don't you? At that art gallery. Therefore, starting next month, I expect a contribution for expenses, a rent, let's say. $1,500 a month seems fair. Not too much, not too little. $1,500 for the guest room we slept in, because the master bedroom was sacred Catherine's sanctuary, for sharing the bathroom with Jason when he visited, for the privilege of smelling fish on Fridays. Yes, but also for hearing every comment, every judgment, every in my day. The silence became absolute. Only the faint hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen could be heard. I felt Ethan's hand searching for mine under the table. His fingers were cold. I glanced at him. His face, normally so full of light, was pale, his eyes darting from his mother to me, helpless. This was his battlefield, the silent war he had fought since childhood, the divided loyalty. And he always gave in to her for peace, for love, for custom. Everyone was waiting for my reaction. The submissive Erica, the quiet girl from a modest family in Cleveland who had snuck into their precious New York family, the one who smiled and nodded, the one who made the mac and cheese without breadcrumbs because Catherine didn't like them, the one who endured comments about when the grandchildren would arrive with a tense smile. Catherine gave a small, confident smile, sure of her victory. She had drawn her line in the sand. Either I paid, or I became the ungrateful usurper. I either bent the knee, or she would kick me out. It was a masterstroke. I placed my fork next to my plate with great care. I slowly wiped the corners of my lips with the linen napkin. Then I looked up, met her dark eyes, and smiled. Not a tense smile, not one of those I had practiced so many times, but a wide, genuine smile that reached my eyes, a smile that disconcerted her because she blinked, uncertain. Don't you worry about that, Catherine, I said, and my voice sounded clear and calm in the silent dining room. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. You won't have to worry about the rent or about us living under your roof. Ethan squeezed my hand tightly. Honey? Catherine frowned. What do you mean? I placed the napkin on the table. I leaned back slightly in my chair, adopting a posture that wasn't confrontational, but one of relief, of liberation. I mean, I'm moving into my own place. I paused, enjoying the absolute bewilderment painting itself across her face, across all their faces. Jason let out a choked sound. Lauren's eyes widened. Well, my own townhouse, to be exact. The word townhouse dropped into the room like a hydrogen bomb. Silence. Then a chorus of stifled exclamations. What? Catherine said, her voice losing all its previous smoothness. It was harsh, incredulous. Erica, what are you saying? Ethan's voice was a whisper of pure bewilderment, almost fear. That's impossible, Jason snapped, finding his voice. What are you talking about? I stood up, gently pushing my chair back. The scrape of its legs on the hardwood floor was the only sound. I looked around at my husband's family, at their faces, frozen in expressions of shock, disbelief, and in Catherine's case, a rage that was beginning to boil beneath the surface. I said, don't worry. I'm freeing you of our burden. Ethan and we're moving to my townhouse on the Upper East Side. That way you'll have your whole house to yourself again, just how you like it. Are you lying? Catherine shot to her feet, the chair screeching violently against the floor. Her elegance had vanished, replaced by a furious tremor. You don't have a townhouse. It's a sham. Your family is from Cleveland. You work in a gallery. Yes, I work in a gallery. I nodded calmly. But my family, Catherine, isn't just from Cleveland. I took a step toward the dining room door. My mother, may she rest in peace, was an Astor. The name meant nothing to Jason or Lauren, but I saw Aunt Teresa's face change, how her tired eyes widened. Catherine, too, froze. In certain New York circles, the name Astor carried weight, a weight associated with vast real estate holdings, with heritage, with a kind of old, discreet wealth that made a Park Avenue apartment look modest. Your mother, Catherine stammered, her confidence crumbling. Mary Ann Astor. The very one, I confirmed with a slight nod. The estate was settled 6 months ago. The house is mine. I was just waiting for the right moment to move in. My gaze met Ethan's. He was livid, looking at me as if he'd never seen me before, and in a way he hadn't. I think that moment is now. Erica, wait. Ethan stood up, knocking over his chair. Why didn't you tell me anything? A townhouse, the Astors, my God. You had other things on your mind, I said softly. My gaze flickering briefly to Catherine, who was now leaning on the table as if her legs were about to give out. And I had to be sure of many things. Without another word, I turned and walked out of the dining room. I didn't run. I walked with a firm stride down the hallway. I took my purse and jacket from the coat rack by the front door. I felt the weight of their stares on my back, the deafening silence I left behind. Erica! Ethan's desperate voice sounded behind me as I had my hand on the doorknob. I turned. He stood at the end of the hall, his face distraught. Behind him, in the dining room doorway, Catherine's rigid silhouette was framed, and further back, the curious, astonished faces of the others. Come find me at the plaza when you want to talk, I told him, and my voice didn't tremble. But right now, I need some air. I need to get out of your house. I opened the door and stepped out into the hallway, into the mild New York night air. The door closed behind me with a soft click, muffling the sounds from the apartment. The beginning of a choked cry from Catherine Ethan's confused voice, the chaos I had just sown. I didn't go down the stairs immediately. I leaned against the cool wall of the landing, and only then, when the solid wood door separated me from them, did I let my body tremble. It wasn't fear, it was adrenaline. It was the liberation of 7 days, 7 months, 7 centuries of smiling and enduring. I shook my head, straightened my shoulders, and walked down the stairs. In my jacket pocket, my phone was already vibrating. A call from Ethan. I looked at it, the screen lighting up the lobby's dimness. I didn't answer. No. I still had to call Martha, my lawyer, and then the security company to open up the house on Fifth Avenue. My house, my townhouse. I smiled to myself, a real smile, as I stepped out onto the street and disappeared into the Sunday night crowd. The game had finally begun. The night air of New York hit my face cool and filled with the city's murmur. I closed my eyes for a moment, leaning against the cold stone of the building's entrance. Inside my purse, the phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Ethan, 1, 2, 3 missed calls. Then a text. Erica, please come back. Let's talk. Where are you? I didn't answer. I couldn't. Not yet. I walked aimlessly away from Park Avenue, away from that apartment that was never a home. The pavement echoed under my heels. I passed terraces full of laughing people, couples strolling the normal life of any given Sunday. I had just detonated mine. My thoughts drifted not to the dining room scene, but further back to my mother Mary Ann of the Astor and Ruiz families. Everyone called her Mary Ann, a petite woman with greying hair, always in an impeccable bun, and eyes that saw everything. She died of cancer 2 years ago, a swift and fierce illness that took her in a matter of months. It was on her deathbed in the private suite at Mount Sinai that she told me everything. I remember the smell of disinfectant, the soft hum of the machines, her incredibly fragile hand in mine. Erica, darling, you have to listen to me, she whispered, her voice a broken silk thread. I've done things a certain way to protect you. From the vultures. From the family. My eyes, swollen from crying, I could only nod. Mom, don't talk about that now. Rest. No now or never. She took a breath, a painful sound. The house on Fifth Avenue is yours. The entire main residence and the investments, the trust. Martha has all the papers. Martha, I repeated, confused. Martha Sterling, her lifelong lawyer, a woman as stern as she was efficient. I raised you away from all this, honey. Away from New York, from the Astors, from their expectations and their poisons. In Cleveland with your father, it was a simple life. The one I wanted for you. A coughing fit shook her. When it passed, her eyes shone with a feverish urgency. But blood is blood. You're an Astor, and what's yours is yours. Don't let anyone make you feel small, or make you ask for permission to occupy your own space in the world. At that moment, I didn't understand the depth of her words. I just wanted her not to suffer. I know, Mum. Promise me, when I'm gone, you take the reins of your life, of your estate. Don't hide. It's not something to be ashamed of. Her hand squeezed mine with surprising strength. And be careful who you tell, darling. Money changes people, even the ones you love. I had thought about those words many times during my courtship with Ethan, when I first met Catherine with her assessing glances and her questions disguised as curiosity. And your parents, Erica, what do they do? My simple answer, my father was a high school teacher now deceased. My mother was a homemaker. It wasn't a lie. It was a half-truth, an omission my mother had advised me to maintain. Let them love you for you first, she once told me. The rest will come later. but later never came because I fell in love with Ethan. Ethan with his easy smile and painter's hands, who knew nothing of stocks or estates, who loved the smell of oil paint and the light of a New York sunset. With him being just Erica, the girl from the art gallery, was enough. It was liberating. And the secret didn't weigh me down at first. Then it got a little heavier each day. The phone vibrated again. This time it wasn't Ethan. It was a known number. Erica. The voice on the other end was clear, professional, without a trace of sleepiness, despite it being Sunday night. Martha. Yes, it's me. I got your message. It's time. Did something happen? No preambles. She was direct as a missile. It happened. I told Ethan's family. Well, my mother-in-law to be exact. In the middle of dinner. A short, dry laugh escaped me. She asked me to pay rent to live in her house. There was a brief silence on the other end of the line. Then an ah. I could almost see her raising an eyebrow in her office on Madison Avenue. And you dropped the house on her. I dropped the house on her. And the last name. Well, it's about time. And Ethan is in shock, knows nothing. He's calling me non-stop. He'll have to process it. Her tone was practical, uncompromising. Where are you now? Walking around the West Village, I think. Go to the plaza. I'm booking you a suite. I'll be there in half an hour with the documents you need. The ones for the house, and also for the trust. It's better if you have them physically. Martha. Do you think I did the right thing? The question slipped out before I could stop it. A crack in the facade of security I had just displayed. Martha sighed, and her voice softened just a little. Erica. Your mother didn't want you to live your life asking for permission, much less have someone charge you for the air you breathe in a house that isn't yours. You've put up with more than you should have for that boy. Now it's time to play the cards you were dealt. We'll see what happens next. But you'll be in your own house, literally. She hung up. Martha was never one for many words of comfort, but her logic was an anchor. She was right. My mother didn't leave me that inheritance, so I could grovel. I sent a text to Ethan. I'm okay. I need space. Not coming back tonight. We'll talk tomorrow. Then I silenced the phone. The suite at the plaza was spacious, quiet, with views of Central Park South. I took off my shoes and sank into the sofa, feeling the weight of the day in my bones. Less than an hour later, the doorbell rang. It was Martha. Martha Sterling was a woman in her mid-50s, impeccably dressed in a grey pantsuit, her short silver hair styled back. She carried a thick leather portfolio under her arm. She entered, gave the suite a critical once-over, and nodded in approval. At least you're treating yourself right, she said, placing the portfolio on the coffee table. Sit. Talk. I told her everything. The dinner, the demand for $1,500. Catherine's expression. Ethan's, the bomb I had dropped. Martha listened motionless, her clear eyes never leaving mine. Predictable, she said when I finished. Mrs. Catherine Miller is a woman accustomed to ruling her small fiefdom. Looking at it from the outside, it was a power play to put you in your place economically and symbolically. What she didn't calculate were your cards. She opened the portfolio. Your cards are quite good, Erica. She pulled out several documents, spreading them before me. Blueprints, deeds, bank statements. The property at 185 Fifth Avenue, right in the heart of the Upper East Side. 4,500 square feet on the main floor with a terrace and park views. Paid in full, no liens. In your name since the will was executed 6 months ago. She ran a finger over the deed. The HOA fees and taxes have been covered by the trust. The house is furnished ready. The keys. She placed a heavy keychain with a single modern key and a remote on the table, then another document. The trust established by your mother. a combination of conservative investments, fixed income mutual fund shares, some rental properties. It generates a more than considerable income. You don't need to work at the gallery, Erica, although I understand you like it. She stated it as a fact, not a judgment. I nodded. I liked my job. I liked the art. The silence of the gallery discovering new artists. It wasn't a job. It was my life. Or a part of it. And now what? I asked, looking at the keys gleaming under the lamplight. Now you have two options. The first, present the documents, move in, and get on with your life. Let your husband and his family digest the blow as they can. The second, use it as leverage to negotiate to change the dynamics. She looked at me intently. Your mother left you independence. How you use it is up to you. But I advise you to talk to Ethan first. He's your husband. He deserves an explanation even if he doesn't like it. She was right again. My heart ached thinking of his face, the confusion and pain in his eyes. I loved him. That was the problem. I loved him, and I had lied to him by omission for years. He'll come, I said almost to myself. Tonight or early tomorrow. Probably, Martha assented. In the meantime, I'll notify the security company. The house is closed but maintained. They can have it ready by morning heat on fridge stocked. You just have to say the word. Yes, please. I took a deep breath. Have it ready. Martha nodded, gathered her things and stood up. At the door she turned. Erica, one more thing. Don't feel guilty. Your secret wasn't malicious. It was protective. Your mother did it to protect her legacy, and you kept it to protect your relationship. Now it's time to protect yourself. And your marriage, if it's worth it. When she left, the silence of the suite was absolute. I walked to the window and looked out at the illuminated city. Out there to the east was Fifth Avenue. My house. My townhouse. The words still felt strange to me. The phone, despite being silenced, lit up the table. This time it wasn't a call, but an avalanche of messages from the family group chat. A group Catherine had created for important family matters. I had muted it weeks ago. With slightly trembling fingers, I opened it. Catherine, Erica. This is no way to behave. You must come back and explain this farce. Ethan is devastated. Jason, Mom, calm down. Erica. Is it really true about the Astors? Are you related to the Astor Construction Group? Lauren. So dramatic, a townhouse. Jason, honey, did you know anything? Aunt Teresa. Erica. Dear. Call me when you can. No pressure. Catherine. Answer me, Erica. This is a sign of disrespect. Where are you? Ethan. Please leave her alone. Erica, honey, answer me. I just want to know you're okay. The last message was from Ethan in a private chat, 10 minutes after the group won. I'm at the door of the plaza. The concierge won't tell me your room number. Please talk to me. I'm waiting in the lobby. My heart leaped. He had come. He hadn't waited for tomorrow. I looked at myself in the foyer mirror, the same simple dress I wore to dinner, my hair slightly disheveled. My eyes, however, held a new determination, a hardness that wasn't there before. I wasn't going to go down with my tail between my legs. I was going down to talk to my husband, to tell him the whole truth. I put on my shoes, took the portfolio of documents Martha had left and the keychain. I held it tightly like a talisman, like a shield. As I left the room, the sound of the door closing was definitive. It was the sound of one chapter ending and another far more uncertain about to begin. The lobby of the plaza at 11 p.m. was a world apart. Soft piano chords floated in the air, mixed with the discreet murmur of conversations and the clinking of glasses. It smelled of fresh flowers and old luxury. And there, amidst that serene elegance, was Ethan. I saw him from the elevator standing like a post next to a marble column, the same jacket he wore at dinner unbuttoned, wringing his hands. His gaze anxiously scanned the elevator doors. When he saw me, his body tensed even more, if that was possible. He looked like he had aged 10 years in an hour. I walked towards him, feeling the thick carpet under my feet. Martha's portfolio, heavy and full of truth, was held firmly under my arm, the keychain in my jacket pocket. "Erica," he said, his voice hoarse. He took my arm gently but with urgency. "Please, let's talk. Let's go somewhere, the terrace. Right here is fine," I said, gently freeing myself. I pointed to a more private corner with 2 leather armchairs, separated by a low table. "Let's sit." He nodded, his gaze lost. We sat facing each other. The pianist in the corner began to play a slow bolero melody. "Are you okay?" was the first thing he asked, and in his eyes I saw genuine concern. And pain, a lot of pain. "Where have you been?" "Why this hotel?" "I needed space, Ethan. I needed to breathe air that wasn't poisoned in that house." I looked at him directly. "And I needed to talk to Martha." "Martha, your lawyer." He said the name falling into his mind like a piece of a perverse puzzle. "Your mother's lawyer, the one who managed everything." "Yes, Erica, a townhouse." The question burst from him, laden with all the accumulated bewilderment. "On Fifth Avenue. The Astors. For God's sake, what is happening?" "Who are you?" "I'm the same person I've always been," I whispered. "The one you met at that Portuguese painters exhibition. The one who got nervous when you asked me for coffee. The one who married you last week. But you didn't tell me you were a millionaire." His voice rose a little, and a few heads turned in our direction. He lowered his tone, forcing the words through gritted teeth. "Why? Why did you hide it from me? Didn't you trust me?" There it was, the question I feared most, the one I had asked myself 1,000 times. At first, I began choosing my words carefully, because my mother asked me to. She wanted people to love me for me, not for my last name or my bank account. You loved me for me, and it was wonderful, it was real." I took a breath. "Then when I met your family, your mother, I saw how she looked at people, how she measured, how she evaluated. I was afraid that if she knew, everything would be different. She would pressure you to, I don't know, ask for money to invest in who knows what. Or worse, she would despise me for being a rich girl, playing at being a bohemian in a gallery. I didn't want that judgment. I wanted a fair chance." "A fair chance," he repeated, bitterness in his voice. "By lying to me." "I didn't lie. I omitted. It's different." "No, Erica. It's not different." He ran a hand through his hair, desperate. "This is my life. Our life. This is fundamental. And the house. You've had a house here in New York for months, years. And you've been living like a guest in my mother's home, sleeping in the guest room, putting up with her comments. God, it feels like a sick joke." "It wasn't a joke," I said, my voice hardening. "It was a choice. A stupid choice, maybe. I thought if I put up with it, if I proved I wasn't a snob, that I could adapt, things would change, that your mother would accept me. And then when the time was right, I'd tell you everything, and we'd move into our own place together." I opened the portfolio on the little table. "This is our place, Ethan." I pulled out the documents. The first page was a copy of the deed. I slid the paper towards him. "Look. 185 Fifth Avenue. Main residence 4,500 square feet. In my name, no liens." He picked up the paper with slightly trembling fingers. His eyes scanned the lines, the notary seal, my full name, Erica Astor Mendoza. He put it down on the table as if it burned him. And this, I continued, pulling out a summarized statement of the trust, is part of the other stuff. The investments, the income. It's not that I'm a millionaire, Ethan. It's that I don't need to work. I work because I want to. He didn't even look at the second document. He was looking at me, and in his eyes there was a storm of emotions, disbelief, pain, betrayal, and a spark of something that could be hope or resentment. And when was the right time going to be, Erica? He asked, his voice now flat tired. After my mother charged you for the second month's rent, when you had to scrub the bathroom to pay for your food. That's not fair. You never asked me to pay anything. You never asked me to contribute. It was her today. And it was the last straw. I wasn't going to stay there paying for the privilege of being despised. I'm not that stupid. And what am I in all this? He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Your husband. The idiot who didn't know who he was marrying, who defended his humble girlfriend when his mother dropped hints, who fought with her because she didn't treat you as an equal. Was it all a sham? Were you just laughing at us in silence? It hurt. It hurt deeply. Tears stung my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I never laughed at you, Ethan. I swear. I love you. And that's why I kept quiet. For fear of losing you. For fear that this, I pointed to the documents, would change what we have. And look, he said, look what's happening. It already has changed it. He leaned back in the armchair, looking up at the vaulted ceiling. He seemed defeated. So now what? What do you want me to do? Move into your townhouse with you and live like some prince consort? Leave my mother there with a knife between her teeth, thinking I'm a gold digger? You don't have to do anything, I said, and my voice sounded cold even to my own ears. I'm moving into my house tomorrow. You can stay on Park Avenue, or you can come with me. Or we can take some time. You decide. Don't make me choose like that, he exploded, slamming his palm on the table. The noise startled the pianist, who missed a beat. We just got married. This is supposed to be our honeymoon, not a Cold War with paperwork. Your mother started the war, Ethan, I reminded him in a tense whisper. Not me. I just fought back with the weapons I have. He stood up, turning his back to me. His shoulders rose and fell with his agitated breathing. I watched him, my heart in my throat. I had made a big bet. I had lost control of the situation, but I had won my freedom. The price, however, could be him. I need to think, he finally said without turning. I need air. This is too much. Ethan, I called, and this time my voice trembled. Do you still love me? He turned slowly. His face was a mask of confusion and pain. I don't know, Erica. Right now I don't even know who you are. His words were a dagger. I stood up too, gathering the documents. Then go. Think. When you know the answer, you know where to find me. At my house on 5th, or here at the hotel until tomorrow. He nodded, a bitter grimace on his lips. Your house. It sounds so strange. He took a step towards me, and for a second I thought he was going to hug me or kiss me or scream at me, but he just walked past. Tomorrow, he murmured, and walked away through the luxurious lobby, away from me. I sank back into the armchair, feeling empty. I had won the battle, but I might have lost the war. My silenced phone lit up again. This time it was a text from an unknown number. I opened it cautiously. Erica, it's Jason. I need to talk to you. It's urgent. Don't tell Ethan. It's about my mother and certain family matters. Can you meet for coffee tomorrow? Jason, the brother. the ambitious one. What did he want, information and alliance? The game clearly wasn't over. It had just moved to a new board. Before I could reply, another message came in this time from Aunt Teresa. Dear, I know this must be a horrible night, but about your mother, Mary Ann Astor. Many years ago, your mother and I served on a charity committee together. She was an admirable woman, brave, like you were tonight. When you want to talk, call me. Perhaps I can help you understand my sister-in-law. She has her reasons, though they don't justify her actions. Take care. A potential ally in the enemy camp, or maybe just another piece on the move. Exhausted, I put the phone away. The tears finally came, silent, bitter tears. For no one but myself and the pianist, still playing his sad bolero in the corner. While I cried in silence at the plaza in the apartment on Park Avenue, the storm was raging. Catherine hadn't been able to sleep. She had called all her contacts, her friends from the club, her financial advisor, even the building's super, who had a cousin who was a notary. The Astors. Yes, of course I know them, an old friend had told her, her voice dripping with gossip. The Astors from the old railroad money with those massive estates upstate. The widow, the only daughter, she married a professor, I think, moved out to Ohio, away from it all. But the fortune is monumental, Catherine. Monumental. If your daughter-in-law is one of them, well, you'd better hope you haven't offended her. Catherine hung up pale. It wasn't a sham. It was real. And she had asked her for $1,500 in rent. The humiliation burned in her gut, but it was surpassed by a cold panic. What if Erica turned Ethan against her? What if she took her son to that townhouse and she was left alone, turned into the wicked witch the whole of New York society would talk about? No, she said aloud in the empty living room. She couldn't allow it. She had to regain control. She had to talk to Ethan, make him see. But Ethan hadn't come home. The doorbell rang. It was Jason, accompanied by a visibly excited Lauren. "Mother, is it true? Is Erica one of the Astors?" Jason asked without a greeting, his eyes shining with a light. Catherine knew all too well the light of opportunity. "It seems so," Catherine said coldly, sitting back in her armchair wrapped in her silk robe. "Though she hasn't shown me any papers. They could be fake." "I've been searching online," Lauren said, pulling out her phone. "Look, here's a society article from years ago. The discreet wedding of Mary Ann Astor to Professor Mendoza. And here in the corner of the photo is that it's Erica as a little girl." Catherine took the phone. The photo was poor quality, but she could recognize the dark-haired girl next to an elegant woman. Her heart froze. It was true. All of it. "That doesn't matter now," Jason said, sitting opposite her. "What matters is what Ethan is doing now. Did he know he was as surprised as we were? More so." Catherine pressed her lips together. "He ran out after her. He hasn't come back. If he goes with her." Jason left the sentence hanging in the air. "If he moves into a townhouse on Fifth Avenue, Mother, the possibilities. For Ethan and for us. That family has connections, influence. It could be a huge opportunity for Ethan's gallery, for my businesses." Catherine looked at him with contempt. "Are you thinking of profiting from this lie?" "It's not a lie, it's luck," Jason corrected impatiently. "Ethan married an heiress. It's a good thing. You're the one who messed it all up with your stupid demand for rent. Who does that?" "This is my house," Catherine exploded, getting to her feet. "And she has a better one," Jason shot back, also standing. "Don't you get it? You have no power over her anymore, or over Ethan if he sides with her. You've lost Mother. Unless what?" Catherine asked in a dangerously low voice. Jason moved closer. Unless you make sure Ethan doesn't side with her. Make him see the lie, the deceit. Make him feel so betrayed that he chooses to stay here with you, with his family. Catherine looked at him, her son. The ambitious one, the practical one. He didn't care about Ethan's love or his happiness. He cared about access to that wealth, to that world. And suddenly her interests aligned with his. She didn't want to lose her son. Jason wanted to gain influence. For both of them, it was crucial to separate Ethan from Erica. And how do we do that? Catherine asked, her voice now controlled, cold as marble. Jason smiled a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Leave it to me. I'll talk to him. And you, Mother, you're going to have to do something very difficult. What? Apologize. Catherine placed a hand on her chest as if she'd been stabbed. Never. To her, no, not to her. To Ethan. Tell him you got carried away and that you were stressed, that you just wanted to help with expenses, but you handled it badly, that you regret it, that you want to fix it. Jason's voice was now soft, persuasive. Win Ethan over. Make him see that his family is here, his mother who loves him. In the meantime, I'll make sure Mrs. Astor shows her true colors as a liar and a snob. Catherine took a deep breath, the humiliation of apologizing, of lowering herself. But it was for Ethan, to not lose him. She nodded slowly. All right. But do it right, Jason. We can't fail. We won't fail, Jason said, his gaze drifting toward the window, toward the New York night, where his brother and his mysterious wife were fighting their own battle. That's what family is for. The morning came with a cold, clear light, filtering through the heavy curtains of the suite. I hadn't slept. I lay in the enormous bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every word, every look from the night before. The pain in Ethan's voice, the emptiness he left when he walked away, and deep down, a spark of anger. Anger at Catherine for forcing this situation. Anger at myself for not being brave sooner. Anger at the world for making money change everything always. At 8 a.m., the phone rang. It was Martha. The house is ready, the heat is on, the fridge has the basics. The cleaning service went through first thing. The keys are at the front desk under your name. Are you heading over? Yes, I answered in a hoarse voice. Today. Good. And Erica? Ethan came last night. He left. He's hurt. Martha sighed on the other end of the line. It's understandable. Give him time. But don't let him make you feel guilty. You didn't rob a bank. You inherited what was yours. She hung up. Her words were a logical balm, but they didn't soothe the ache in my chest. I dressed in jeans and a simple sweater, nothing that looked like the owner of a townhouse. I went down for breakfast, but the coffee tasted like ash. Just as I was paying the bill, I saw him enter the lobby. Ethan looked like he had aged another decade. Sunken eyes, a day's stubble, the same wrinkled clothes from last night. He met my gaze and walked over as if each step was a heavy weight. Hi, he said, his voice a rough whisper. Hi. Didn't know what else to say. Want some coffee? He shook his head. I came to have you show me the house. He pronounced the last word as if it were in a foreign language. Ethan, please. Erica, I need to see it. I need to understand. I nodded. There was no going back. Okay, let's go. The taxi ride was silent, uncomfortable. I looked out the window. He looked at his hands. The driver hummed along to a song on the radio. The distance between the plaza and Fifth Avenue was short, but every block felt like an abyss. The building was majestic, made of pale stone, with an impeccable facade and a massive carved wooden door. It wasn't a modern apartment block. It was a renovated mansion with only 2 residences per floor. I got out of the taxi, and Ethan followed, staring at the facade in disbelief. "It's 185, I said unnecessarily. I took out the keychain. It wasn't just a key, but a fob to open the grand main entrance door, which unlatched with a soft click. We entered a private vestibule with a marble floor, a wrought iron spiral staircase leading to the upper floor, and a discreet elevator. It smelled of beeswax and lemon, clean and empty. "The elevator is just for this residence and the one above," I explained, pressing the button. The doors opened silently. We went up. When they opened again, we were in a foyer that was larger than Catherine's living room. Light poured in through towering windows that opened onto a long balcony and beyond the treetops of Central Park. The floors were dark, gleaming hardwood. The walls were high and white, some with plaster mouldings. There was modern but classic furniture, a huge linen-based sofa, leather armchairs, a massive worn Persian rug in the center, large format abstract paintings on the walls. My mother had good taste. It was elegant, sober, expensive, and completely devoid of life. Ethan said nothing. He walked in like a sleepwalker, crossed the foyer, and looked into the main living room. His eyes widened even more. The room was enormous, with a black marble fireplace and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. At the far end, glass doors led to a covered terrace with plants. "My God," he finally murmured, his voice echoing in the empty space. "There are 6 bedrooms, 4 full bathrooms, a breakfast nook, and a main kitchen, a study, a home theatre." I listed mechanically like a real estate agent. "The terrace is about 800 square feet. The views are of the park." 800 square feet, he repeated, as if he didn't understand the concept. His own art gallery wasn't 800 square feet in total. He walked to the center of the room, turning slowly, taking it all in. His gaze went from the paintings to the furniture to the designer lamp hanging from the high ceiling. There was no joy on his face, only astonishment and a profound confusion. "And all of this is yours?" he asked, turning to me. "Just yours?" "Yes, inherited from my mother in my name. And how much is this worth?" "I don't know exactly. Several million. Martha has the details." He let out a short, dry, humorless laugh. "Several million. And I got you silver earrings for your birthday, and we argued about whether we could afford a vacation to Florida or California." His tone tore me apart. "Ethan, that didn't matter. The vacation with you in California was perfect. I'm wearing the earrings right now." And it was true. The small silver earrings with a tiny paintbrush shape gleamed on my earlobes. "Of course it matters," he burst out, his voice booming in the empty living room. "It matters because it changes everything. It changes the balance. It changes the perspective." I thought we were a team. 2 people starting out with unstable jobs, with dreams, fighting together against my mother, saving for a down payment on a place. And all this time you had this. He gestured widely, furiously at the space. "And you let me make plans. Dream about a 30-year mortgage debate if we could afford a kid. God. Erica, you must have been laughing at me inside." "Never!" I shouted, and my tears held back since last night finally broke free. "I never laughed at you. I loved you. I love you. Your dreams were my dreams. This," I pointed around us. "This isn't a dream, it's a house. A huge, empty, cold house that I inherited from a mother who died too young. I would 1,000 times rather have our guest room on Park Avenue with you in it." "Really?" he asked. And now he came closer to me, his face inches from mine. His eyes, normally so warm, were filled with pain and anger. Do you really prefer it? Because you had no problem storming out of there at the first opportunity, coming to your palace and leaving me there with the mess you made. I didn't make the mess. Your mother asked me for money to live in her house. She put me against a wall, and you dropped a nuclear bomb. You could have talked to me in private. You could have told me your secret, and then together we could have found a way to tell her. But no, you chose the drama, the shock effect, to humiliate her in front of the whole family. Was that it? Revenge. I was speechless. Was that true? A part of me had enjoyed seeing Catherine's face, hitting back with such force. No, it wasn't just revenge, I said, but my voice sounded weak. It was... I was fed up, Ethan. Fed up with bowing my head, and when she asked for the money, it was the last straw. I reacted. Maybe it wasn't the best way, but I exploded. He turned away, rubbing his face with his hands. And what am I supposed to do now, Erica? Move in here with you? Become the gentleman who lives off his wife? Leave my mother, who with all her faults raised me alone after my father died, to rot in her house thinking her son is a gold digger? You're not a gold digger, you're my husband. A husband who didn't think to sign a prenup because his wife was broke. Or do you have one? Did Martha make you sign something without me knowing? There was suspicion in his voice now, a suspicion that cut me like a knife. No, I whispered, feeling dirty. There's no prenup. My mother suggested it, but I refused. Because I trusted you. His shoulders slumped. The internal struggle was visible in every fibre of his body. I don't know who you are, he repeated like last night. I don't know if the woman I fell in love with exists, or if she was just a role you were playing. And I don't know. I don't know if I want to live in this museum. He looked around with disdain. It's beautiful, it's impressive, and it has no soul. It has nothing of us. His words hit me with unexpected force. It was true. The house was magnificent, but it was a shell, a monument to my mother's past, not ours. There were no of our books on the shelves, and no of our crooked pictures on the wall, no of the ugly mug he used for coffee that I hated. We could give it a soul, I said. But it sounded like a plea, not a declaration. Together. He looked at me, and for a second I saw the man I had fallen in love with peek through the pane. But it was just for a second. I need time, Erica. Real time. Not here. At my studio or the gallery, or anywhere that doesn't smell like old money and secrets. He nodded as if confirming it to himself. I'm going to leave. I'm not going back to my mother's house yet. I'm going to stay at the gallery for a few days. I have a sofa bed there. Ethan, please. No, Erica. Not for now. He walked to the door, then turned. I love you, or I loved the woman I thought you were. But this, I need to breathe. And you have to decide what you want. Do you want to be Erica, my wife? Or Mrs. Astor, the heiress who lives in a townhouse? Because sometimes I don't think you can be both. And with that, he was gone. The sound of his worn shoes on the marble floor of the vestibule echoed until the elevator door closed. And then silence. A huge, expensive, empty silence. I sank onto the linen sofa, which smelled of clean and dust. And I cried. I cried for my cracking marriage, for Ethan's anger, for the loneliness of that immense house, and for my mother who perhaps, with her good intentions, had condemned me to this. While I cried in my empty living room on Park Avenue, the morning was tense and full of maneuvers. Catherine, following Jason's advice, had prepared Ethan's favourite breakfast, freshly squeezed orange juice avocado toast. She waited for him at the table, dressed in a comfortable sweatsuit, not her usual formal attire. She wanted to appear vulnerable, repentant, but Ethan didn't show. Instead, she got a call from Jason. "Mother, I've been asking around. The Fifth Avenue house exists, and it's hers, or in a trust in her name. It's legit." Catherine squeezed the juice glass. "How much?" "It's not for sale, so it's hard to say. But based on the location, the square footage, we're talking about 4 or 5 million. Easily, and that's just the property. There's more, according to my contacts. Investments a considerable portfolio." A heavy silence fell over the line. 5 million was a figure she couldn't even imagine. Her apartment in a good area was maybe worth one, and it was half paid off. "So?" Catherine asked in a harsh voice. "So we have to be smart. Ethan is there now, right with her." "I don't know. He hasn't come back," Jason mumbled. "You have to find him. You have to talk to him before she brainwashes him. Make him see that she lied to him for years, that this isn't normal. Insist on family, on loyalty." "I know that, Jason," Catherine said, irritated. "But what if he chooses the townhouse? What if he goes to live there?" "Then," Jason said, his voice turning cold and calculating, "then we'll have to make sure he doesn't cut off our access to him. Or his money. You're his mother. You have rights. And he, well, he's my brother. Family comes first, right?" Catherine didn't answer. Jason's ambition was too transparent, but in this case their goals aligned. She couldn't lose Ethan. She hung up and called her son's cell. It went straight to voicemail. "Ethan, darling, it's Mum. Please call me. I'm so sorry, truly. It was a mistake to ask Erica for money. I was stressed. I wasn't thinking. I just want to talk, son. I love you. Call me." She put the phone on the table. The orange juice didn't look so good anymore. She got up and went to the window. Out there, somewhere in New York, her son was with a woman who could buy and sell her 10 times over. A woman she had despised. Fear, a deep, icy fear, gripped her. It wasn't just about the money. It was about control. She had lost control. Just then, the doorbell rang. It wasn't Ethan. It was her sister-in-law, Teresa. "I came to see if there was any news," Teresa said, entering with her usual calm air. She was carrying a small container. "I brought you some frittata. I figured you hadn't eaten." "I'm not hungry," Catherine said, but she let her sister-in-law into the kitchen. "Do you know where Ethan is?" "I don't know. With her, I suppose." Teresa put the frittata in the fridge and sat at the table opposite Catherine. She looked at her with her clear, tired eyes. "Catherine, what were you trying to do with the rent thing? Seriously." "It's my house, my rules," Catherine snapped, but without conviction. "Your house, yes, but she's his wife. Your daughter-in-law, not a tenant." Teresa sighed. "And now look at the mess you've made. The girl is not just anybody. She's an Astor. She has class and she has resources, and you treated her like a servant." "I didn't know who she was. That's the worst part. You treated her badly." "Without maybe." What if she had been a nobody, as you say? Would it have been okay to demand money from her to make her feel inferior? Teresa shook her head. "Sometimes, Catherine, you're just like your mother-in-law, and you know how much you suffered with her." The comparison hit Catherine like a punch. Her mother-in-law, a cold, domineering woman who had never considered her good enough for her son, who always reminded her that she lived in her house. "It's different," she murmured, but without force. "It's not. And now you either genuinely apologize or you lose your son. He loves her. You could see it at the wedding. And if you force him to choose, he might not choose his bossy mother." Catherine said nothing. She looked out the window. Teresa was right, and she knew it. but apologizing to that girl stuck in her throat. I'm going to try to talk to her, Teresa said, standing up. With Erica, maybe I can build a bridge. Why? Catherine asked suspiciously. Because I like her, and because your son is happy with her, or was, and because, she added, picking up her purse, her mother, Mary Ann, was kind to me at a time when no one else was. I owe her that. Teresa left, leaving Catherine more alone and more confused than ever. The war was no longer just with Erica. It was with her own son, with her own past, and with the ghost of a mother-in-law who suddenly looked too much like herself. The silent townhouse was a giant empty organ, and every little noise the creak of wood, the faint hum of the elevator. The distant murmur of the street reverberated like a phantom heartbeat. I sat on the edge of the linen sofa, feeling the weight of the space around me. The crying had dried up, leaving only a dense fatigue and a void in my chest where the certainty of my marriage used to beat. Ethan's words, sometimes, "I don't think you can be both," echoed in my head like a poisoned refrain. He was right. Erica, the gallery girl, Ethan's wife, was incompatible with Erica Astor, the heiress. My mother never saw it that way. For her, the estate was a tool, not an identity. But she had walked away from all this. She had chosen a simple life with my father. I, however, had returned, and I had returned with a lie. The buzz of the street-level door transmitted through the video intercom startled me. I wasn't expecting anyone. Ethan. He came back. I ran to the panel, my heart racing, but the screen didn't show my husband's anguished face, but that of a serene older woman with her hair in an impeccable grey bun. Aunt Teresa. Doubt paralyzed me for a moment. What did she want? Was she coming on Catherine's behalf to scold me? But I remembered her message from last night. Perhaps I can help you understand my sister-in-law. And she had mentioned my mother, curiosity and a desperate need for non-confrontational human contact won out. I pressed the button to open the street door. Minutes later, the soft chime of the apartment door sounded. When I opened it, I found Teresa holding a wicker basket. It smelled of freshly baked bread. "Erica, dear," she said with a sad but kind smile. "I'm sorry to show up like this unannounced. I thought you might not want to be alone, and perhaps you hadn't had breakfast." She lifted the basket slightly. "I brought coffee and some muffins I made this morning to calm the nerves." A wave of gratitude so intense washed over me that I almost started crying again. "Please come in, Teresa. That's very kind of you." She entered, and her expert gaze, that of a woman accustomed to elegant surroundings, took in the foyer and living room without showing astonishment, only a faint recognition. "Your mother had exquisite taste. This has her touch, serene classic, but alive." "You knew her." I said, more a statement than a question, as I led her to the more welcoming breakfast nook in the kitchen. It was spacious, modern, with an island and stools. "Many years ago," she nodded, placing the basket on the marble countertop and starting to unpack a thermos cups and a cloth with still warm muffins. "It was on a committee for the MoMA raising funds for restorations. I was the younger brother's wife, newly married, very lost. She was the Mary Ann Astor. Everyone watched her, but she was the only one who came over to chat with me, to make me feel welcome. She told me these things were always a circus, but it was worth it for the art." Super. She poured 2 cups of divinely smelling coffee. She was kind without being condescending. A rarity. I took the cup, warming my hands with it. Teresa's words painted the mother I knew, but in a setting I had only imagined. She never talked much about that life, about New York, her family here. "She left," Teresa said, simply sitting on a stool. "She found your father a man who wanted nothing from her world, and she eloped in a way. She created her own world. That requires a strong character and a lot of courage. She looked at me directly. I think you've inherited that courage. What happened last night was a brutal turn of the rudder, but it was brave. It was impulsive, I corrected bitterly, and maybe stupid. I've lost Ethan. Oh dear, you haven't lost him, she said, with a calm that irritated me slightly. He's hurt. His male pride, his idea of the relationship, everything has been shaken. He needs time to rearrange the pieces. But he loves you. That was still shining through the anger last night. He said he didn't know who I was, and it's normal for him to feel that way right now. You've shown him a huge part of yourself that he didn't know. It's as if you suddenly discovered your wife speaks fluent Mandarin. It would surprise you, and you'd wonder why she didn't share it sooner. She took a sip of coffee. The problem isn't the wealth, Erica. It's the secret and the way it came out. Catherine, well, Catherine lit the fuse. And why did she do it? I asked the question that had tormented me since I arrived at that house. Why does she hate me so much? Teresa sighed, toying with her cup. She doesn't hate you. She fears you and she envies you. Envies me. You're young, you're beautiful, you have her son. And now it turns out you also have your own power. A power she can't touch. Catherine has spent her life defined by what she controls this house. Her sons, her small circle. It's her fortress built after being widowed very young. Your father-in-law was a charming man, but weak. And when he died, she clung to the only thing she had: the property, the authority over her children. You, with your independence, with this house. She made a vague gesture. You represent everything she doesn't have, and never will. And yesterday, she tried to reassert her control over you in the only way she knows economically. And it backfired spectacularly. Her words made sense, a cruel but logical sense. So what do I do now? That, honey, only you can decide. But a piece of advice from an old woman who has seen many family battles: don't fight this war from the trench of your money. Don't use this. She gestured to the kitchen. The house as a weapon. Use it for what it is: your home. Invite Ethan to build it with you. And Catherine? Well, you'll have to set boundaries with Catherine. But try to understand that behind the harpy is a woman scared of being left alone and irrelevant. As we talked, my phone vibrated on the countertop. It was a message from Jason. Erica, we need to talk. It's important. Can I stop by? I know where you live. A wave of disgust washed over me. Jason, the ambitious brother. What could he want? Trouble? Teresa asked, seeing my expression. Jason wants to come over. Her calm eyes hardened slightly. Be careful with Jason, Erica. He's Catherine's favorite son, not because she loves him more, but because he thinks like her. He's practical, ambitious, and he sees opportunities where others see problems. And right now, you are a huge opportunity. I'm not giving him any money, I said immediately firmly. It's not just money, it's influence, contacts, the shine of your last name. Don't underestimate what people would do to be associated with the Astors. She stood up. I'm going. You have to manage this. But remember, you're stronger than you think. Your mother raised you for this. And Ethan, give him time, but don't give him all the power. You're hurting too. She hugged me, a warm, firm hug that comforted me immensely. When she left, the house plunged back into a silence that now felt a little less hostile. Her words had given me a framework to understand the chaos. But Jason's message was a black cloud on the horizon. I decided not to answer. I owed him no explanation. Instead, I went up to the bedroom floor. I had chosen a smaller one facing the inner courtyard to sleep in. I didn't feel I had the right to the huge, cold master suite. I lay on the unmade bed, staring at the ceiling. The physical and emotional exhaustion overcame me, and I fell into a restless sleep. While I slept, Ethan wandered through New York aimlessly. He had left the Fifth Avenue townhouse with his soul in pieces. He walked without direction, his steps unconsciously leading him to his studio, a modest space in the East Village, where he painted and taught occasional classes. Closing the door behind him, the familiar smell of turpentine oil paint and wood dust gave him a false sense of normalcy. Here he was, Ethan Miller, the painter. Not the heiress's husband, not Catherine's son. Just him, his canvases, and his ghosts. But normalcy was an illusion. He sank into the old battered armchair covered in paint stains and buried his face in his hands. The image of Erica in that enormous living room, so vulnerable and yet so in command of it all, was seared into his mind. She had lied to him for years. Every time they complained about the price of rent, every time his mother made a comment about the uncertain future of artists, she kept quiet, knowing she had the solution within arm's reach in a drawer of documents. The anger returned, hot and bitter. But beneath the anger was fear. Fear of having been a fool. Fear that his love, pure and simple, was just a whim for her, an adventure with a bohemian artist before she returned to her real world of townhouses and trusts. And there was also another, more shameful emotion, peeking through a hint of relief. Relief at the thought of never having to worry about money again, of being able to paint whatever he wanted, without depending on selling cheesy paintings to tourists. The thought made him sick to his stomach. His phone vibrated. It was his mother, the 10th call, and a message from Jason. "Bro, we need to talk. The thing with Erica is getting ugly. Call me." He ignored both. He couldn't deal with them. Not yet. Instead, he opened his phone's browser and with clumsy fingers typed, "Asta net worth." The results took his breath away. Articles from financial news, entries on society blogs, news from charity auctions. The Astors weren't just rich. They were part of that discreet, powerful aristocracy that owned half of upstate New York and had stakes in banks, energy companies, construction firms. The blurry wedding photo Lauren had found was just the tip of the iceberg. Erica hadn't just inherited a house. She had inherited a legacy. He closed his eyes. What was he going to do? Go live with her? The idea gave him claustrophobia. Everything was too big, too perfect, too foreign. Stay with his mother. That would be a defeat, a regression to adolescence, and besides, it would mean siding with Catherine. Stay here in his studio. That was a temporary solution, the act of an angry child. He had no answers, only question drilling into his brain, and a dull ache in his chest that told him that despite everything, he missed his wife. The Erica he thought he knew. On Park Avenue, Catherine's frustration simmered. Ethan wasn't answering. Teresa had gone as a peace ambassador and hadn't returned. And Jason was at his house on the phone with his contact at the property records office confirming details. Yes, free of liens. In the name of Erica Astor Mendoza. Date of acquisition 6 months ago. There. See. Just after they got married. Jason hung up and turned to his mother, who was drinking her third black coffee as if it were water. You see, even the timing is calculated. She married him without telling him and then put the house in her name. Why? To protect him, or to make sure that if something goes wrong, he doesn't touch a thing. They didn't sign a prenup, Catherine said bitterly. I suggested it, you know, before the wedding. I told Ethan it was the sensible thing to do, but he got angry, said it was distrustful that love doesn't need paperwork. She let out a short, harsh laugh. Love? Look where his love is now, in a penthouse on Fifth. Exactly. Jason said, rubbing his hands together. It was a gesture he made when he saw a business deal. Without a prenup in a normal marriage, Ethan would get half of what's earned during the marriage. But this is an inheritance. It's hers. Unless she commingles it or puts it in both their names, he's not entitled to a single damn dime. Catherine looked at him furiously. And you think that's okay? That this woman has everything and my son has nothing? Of course I don't think it's okay. That's why we have to act. We have to make Ethan realize he's being used, that she kept him in the dark to have total control. And we have to get that wealth to be shared, for the good of the family. For the good of the family or for yours, Jason? Catherine asked with a penetrating gaze. Jason didn't flinch. It's the same thing, Mother. If Ethan has access to that money, he can help you. He can help me set up my import business for real, not that shabby warehouse I have. We can all live better. It's a matter of justice. He is her husband. He has rights, even if they're only moral. Catherine nodded slowly. Jason's logic, twisted but persuasive, was sinking in. Ethan had rights, and she, as his mother, had a duty to make sure they weren't trampled on. The fear of losing her son was transforming into anger, and the anger into determination. What do you propose? She asked, her voice, now cold, tactical. First, we need to isolate Ethan from her. Have him spend time here with us so he remembers what family is. You have to be the understanding mother, the one who apologizes, the one who is suffering. You have to make him see that he's the victim here, not her. And second, we need information about the trust, about the real extent of her wealth. And for that, Jason said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, we might have to make a tactical alliance. With whom? With Aunt Teresa. She seems to have taken a liking to our dear Erica. Let's use that. Let her earn her trust, find things out. Catherine frowned. Teresa won't play spy. She doesn't have to be a spy. Just listen. Spend time with her and tell us what she hears. Teresa is family after all. Her loyalty should be with us, not with a newcomer who lied to us. Catherine wasn't entirely convinced, but she had no better plan. She nodded. All right, I'll talk to Teresa. You keep digging for information. And find your brother. Bring him home. I will, Jason said, standing up. Let me handle my brother. You just worry about being the loving, wounded mother. When Jason left, Catherine was alone in her living room, too tidy, too silent. She looked at her wedding photo on the mantelpiece. Her young and radiant, next to a man with a kind smile. He had given her a comfortable life, but never this level of wealth. And she had had to manage on her own afterward. She had fought to keep this apartment, to raise her children with decency. And now this girl with her inheritance, dropped from the sky, wanted to take her son. And maybe, just maybe, she was entitled to a piece of that wealth. For justice, for the years she had struggled alone. The idea planted by Jason began to take root, twisted and venomous in her heart. The game was no longer just about control or a son's love. Now it was also about money. And Catherine Miller, who had survived widowhood and austerity, knew how to fight for money. She had been doing it her whole life. The afternoon was falling over New York, tinted a cold gold when I decided I was done crying and waiting. The townhouse, despite its splendor, felt like a gilded cage. Teresa's words resonated. Don't fight this war from the trench of your money. She was right. I had reacted, I had counterattacked. But now I needed to take deliberate action. And that started with Ethan. I couldn't let the distance and the venom of his family poison the wound. I dressed with determination, choosing a simple black dress, nothing pretentious. I didn't want to intimidate. I just wanted to talk to my husband. I grabbed my purse and keys, and as I opened the door, I came face to face with him. Ethan was there on the landing, his hand raised as if about to ring the bell. He looked as surprised as I was. He was wearing the same wrinkled clothes, but he seemed calmer, though a deep sadness was etched in his eyes. "Erica," he said, lowering his hand. "I was coming to find you," I replied, my voice a whisper. "I was coming to see you." He paused, taking a deep breath. "Can we go inside?" I nodded and stepped back to let him pass. This time his gaze wasn't one of empty astonishment, but of calmer observation. He walked into the living room and stood by the windows, looking out at the park. "It's beautiful," he finally said without turning. "And you're right, it has no soul. But it could." My heart skipped a beat. Ethan turned. "I've spent all day thinking, getting angry, feeling like an idiot, a poor man, a gold digger with no gold to dig." A crooked grimace crossed his face. "And then I thought about you, the Erica I know. The one who gets excited about an ugly painting in a crappy gallery. The one who laughs when she burns the omelette. The one who hugged me the day my first important painting didn't sell. That woman isn't a fraud. She's real." Tears clouded my vision. "She's the only woman there is." "I know. I know that now." He approached slowly. "But you hurt me, Erica. A deep hurt. I didn't feel like your partner. I felt like your secret, like something that had to be protected from the reality of who you are." "It wasn't like that," I protested, but with less force, because maybe in some dark corner there was some truth to his words. Maybe not, but the effect was the same. He stopped a few feet from me. "If we're going to get through this, there can be no more secrets. None. And there can't be two sides. It can't be you against my family, and I can't be between my family and you. It has to be you and me against the world, if necessary. But together." Those were the words I had longed to hear. "And how do we do that, your mother, Jason? My mother is my problem. I'll handle her. I'll set clear, firm boundaries. She will not disrespect you again. And Jason," his face hardened. "Jason is another matter. I know he contacted you. Be careful with him, Erica. My brother smells an opportunity from a mile away. I'm not giving him a cent. It's not just money. It's influence, status. Your last name opens doors he's been trying to kick down for years." He sighed. "Are you sure you want this, that you want to try? With me, with all this mess?" I looked around at the cold, perfect house, and then at him. Imperfect, pained, real. My home wasn't within these walls. My home was wherever he was. "I'm sure," I said firmly, "but not here. Not yet. This house is scary. It overwhelms us. Can we go somewhere? Just you and me. To talk, to remember who we were before everything went wrong." A genuine smile, the first in what felt like an eternity, appeared on his lips. "Yes, please. Let's get out of this museum." We left together, and as I closed the door, I felt an immense relief. We walked aimlessly, as we used to do at the beginning, and ended up in a shabby, cozy tea shop on a side street full of students and quirky people. There, over cups of steaming tea, we began to truly talk. I told him everything. My mother's wishes, my fear, my stupidity. He told me about his anger, his humiliation, his fear of not being enough. It was painful, but it was a cleansing pain, like disinfecting a wound. Meanwhile, on Park Avenue, the family strategy was falling apart. Catherine, following Jason's script, had called Teresa to ask her to probe Erica. Her sister-in-law's response left her frozen. "No, Catherine," Teresa said with firm calm. I am not going to spy on that girl for you. What you need to do is apologize to her, genuinely, or you will lose your son. And I'm telling you this as someone who lost her husband for not knowing when to shut up and when to apologize. You don't understand, Catherine cried on the verge of tears of frustration. She's taking him away. You're the one pushing him away, Teresa retorted and hung up. Jason, for his part, had gone to Ethan's studio and not found him. Furious, he called his phone again and again, until Ethan, in a moment of pause at the tea shop, turned it off. It's Jason, he said wearily. He must be fuming. What does he want? The usual. To take advantage. Don't pay him any mind, Erica. Promise me. I promise. But Jason wasn't a man to give up easily. Unable to find his brother, he made a decision. If the mountain won't come to Mohammed. He looked up the address of the gallery where Erica worked. He wouldn't go to the townhouse. That would be too obvious. He would approach her on her neutral ground. There he thought he could talk to her without Ethan's influence. Our truce in the tea shop lasted a few precious hours. We didn't fix everything, not by a long shot, but we opened a door we thought was sealed. When we left, it was already dark, and Ethan walked me back to the door of the Fifth Avenue building. He didn't come in. I'm going to my mother's house, he said, seeing my immediate look of concern. To talk to her. To lay the cards on the table like we just did. It's time. Do you want me to come with you? He shook his head. This is a conversation I have to have alone. But afterward, I'd like to come here. To sleep on the sofa if I have to. Or in that small room you mentioned. To start. The bed is big, I whispered, blushing despite everything. He smiled, a little sad, a little hopeful. One step at a time. Okay, but yes, I'd like to stay. He kissed me. It was a cautious kiss, full of unanswered questions, but also of promise. Then he left, and I went up to the house with a considerably lighter heart. The next day, I went to work. I needed normalcy, the routine of the gallery, the smell of fresh paper and paint. My boss, Sylvia, a woman in her 60s with impeccable taste and zero patience for drama, greeted me with a raised eyebrow. Thought you'd be on your honeymoon or organizing your palace, she said, handing me a stack of catalogues. I needed to work, I replied simply. Good. Emotional turmoil is bad for business. We talk about art here, not soap operas. But her gaze was a little softer than usual. The morning passed calmly, attending to a couple of clients checking invoices for shipments. Around noon, the bell on the door chimed and Jason walked in. My body tensed immediately. He was well dressed, with a smile that tried to be folksy, but didn't reach his cold, calculating eyes. Erica, what a joy to see you here in your element. Jason, what brings you here? I don't recall you being interested in contemporary art. Always a good time to start, he said, with false joviality, scanning the gallery with a gaze that evaluated the price of the works more than their artistic value. Besides, I wanted to talk to you, alone, without family interference. Whatever you have to say, you can say it here. He moved closer, lowering his voice. It's about Ethan, and about your situation. I think we can help each other. I said nothing, just watched him with my arms crossed. My silence encouraged him to continue. Look, Erica, I know there have been misunderstandings. My mother can be strict, but she only wants what's best for Ethan. And now with your new situation, we're all a bit lost. Ethan is confused, hurt. He paused dramatically. He's afraid he's not up to your level. I'm afraid it will end your marriage. His words were calculated to prick right where it hurt most. Ethan and I are talking. We'll handle our marriage. Of course, of course. But family is important. We can be a great support or a great obstacle. He dropped the threat gently. I, for example, have a business project, importing wines from small vineyards, with a little initial capital and especially with contacts. The Astor name opens a lot of doors in that world. It could take off. And if I'm stable, happy, the whole family would be more relaxed, more willing to accept the changes. There it was, the proposition. He didn't ask for money directly, but the insinuation was clear. Invest in me, and I'll guarantee you family peace. It disgusted me. Jason, I said, keeping my voice calm despite the fury boiling inside me. I am not going to give you money, nor will I use my mother's name to do business with you. My relationship with Ethan is not a business transaction, and my inheritance is not a common fund that the Miller family can access in exchange for sympathy. His smile vanished, replaced by a mask of coldness. Wow, what a shame. I thought you were smarter. Look, Erica, you're not in a position to be so high and mighty. You came into this family lying. That makes you weak. Ethan might be interested to know, for example, that your lawyer, that Martha person, is already researching how to protect your inheritance in the event of a possible, what's it called? Yes, divorce. It was a lie, a blatant, venomous lie, but he said it with such conviction that I knew it was the kind of rumor he would spread without hesitation. Get out of here, Jason, I said, pointing to the door with a finger that trembled slightly with rage. As you wish, but think about what I said. Family is forever, and without us in the end, you'll be all alone in your huge townhouse with all your money and no one to share it with. He turned and walked out, leaving a bitter aftertaste in the air. I leaned on the counter, breathing deeply. I had underestimated Jason's baseness. It wasn't just ambition, it was cruelty. That night, when Ethan came to the Fifth Avenue house, he arrived with a face marked by exhaustion, but with a certain determination. I talked to my mother, he said, as we sat in the kitchen eating an omelette we had made together, lopsided and delicious. I told her I was moving in here with you, that this is my home now too, if you'll have me, and that I wouldn't tolerate another comment against you. She started crying, saying I was abandoning her, that you were a gold digger. It was tough. I'm sorry, I murmured, taking his hand. Don't be. It had to be done. He took a bite of omelette. But there's more. Jason was there at the end, trying to pump me for information, asking about your finances, about plans. He gave me this whole speech about family unity, about how we shouldn't let money separate us. It was disgusting. He came to see me at the gallery. I confessed then and told him about the conversation, the veiled proposal, the veiled threat. Ethan's face darkened. He threatened you. More or less. He said he could make you believe Martha was preparing divorce papers. Ethan let out a dry, forceful curse. That bastard. Don't listen to him, Erica. Don't give him a second of your attention. I'm going to talk to him tomorrow, and I'm going to set him straight. No, please, I don't want more fights. We have enough already. It's not a fight. It's setting a boundary with my brother. His gaze was firm. You and me. We promised. Against the world, but together. And that includes against my brother and his scheming. I looked into his eyes, seeing the determination, the love, and the clean anger not at me, but on my behalf. For the first time since that dinner, I felt like we were truly a team. I promise, I said. And that night, for the first time, we slept together in the townhouse. Not in the master suite, but in the small room, holding each other, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the big house, slowly starting to turn it into a home. The future was uncertain, full of family plots and resentments to diffuse, but we were together. And that was the only fortress that truly mattered. The awakening was strange. The morning light filtered through the blinds of a room that wasn't mine. but the warmth of a familiar body next to me made everything feel right for a few seconds. Ethan slept deeply, his expression more serene than it had been in days. I closed my eyes, clinging to that moment of peace. I knew it would be brief. Martha called while we were making coffee in the enormous kitchen, which was starting to feel a little less hostile. "Good morning. I've checked the building's access log. Jason Miller tried to enter last night at 10:17 p.m. The intercom system registered his attempt, but since he didn't have a code, he couldn't get in." My blood ran cold. He was here, at the door. "It seems so. Probably after seeing you at the gallery. He wanted to continue the conversation. I suggest you change the access codes and give instructions to the security company. He's not on the authorized list, but it's better to be safe." "Do it," I said without hesitation. The invasion infuriated me, but it also scared me. "Is there anything else?" "Yes. I've received an indirect inquiry from a lawyer named Rojas. He was asking, in a general sense, about the contestability of inheritances received just after a marriage if there was no prenuptial agreement. He didn't mention names, but the timing is interesting." I looked at Ethan, who was watching me with concern from the other side of the island. "It's Jason. He's looking for ways to touch the inheritance." "He can't," Martha said firmly. "It's prior property, very clear-cut. But the fact that he's asking means he's getting advice, and that's a declaration of intent. Be careful." I hung up and told Ethan. His face darkened. "This has gone too far. I can't believe my own brother. We have to stop him, Ethan. Now. Before he invents something more serious. What can we do? A restraining order? That would be a scandal, wouldn't it? First, we need to meet. All of us face to face. Get everything clear once and for all." The idea came to me suddenly, driven by a mix of exhaustion and determination. A family meeting. Here. In my house. Tonight. Ethan rolled his eyes. "That's like throwing a match on a powder keg." "Exactly, but at least it will explode in plain sight and we'll know where the faults lie. If we keep on like this with Jason lurking and your mother crying, it'll be a war of attrition. I'm not going to put up with that. It either breaks or it breaks for good." He looked at me, assessing my resolve. Finally, he nodded. "You're right. Call me a coward. But I prefer an open front to shots in the back. I'll call my mother and Teresa. You call Jason." "No, you call him too. He's your brother. And tell him that if he doesn't come, I will consider that he is renouncing any kind of relationship or communication with us from now on, including access to any information about our estate." I used his own words against him. Ethan nodded, understanding the play. The calls were as tense as one might expect. Catherine, on the other end of the line, started with reproaches. "Are you going to side with her against your family again?" But ended up accepting, drawn by the opportunity to finally enter the famous townhouse. Teresa accepted immediately, her voice grave. "It's better if someone with common sense is there," she said. And Jason, when Ethan delivered the ultimatum, laughed an unpleasant sound. "You want to play like that, little brother? Fine. I'll be there. Curious to see your little love nest." The meeting was set for 8 p.m. The day felt endless. Ethan went to his studio needing to paint to clear his head. I stayed trying to work from home, but it was impossible to concentrate. Instead, I walked through the house, mentally preparing for the invasion. It wasn't just a physical space. It was my territory, and tonight I would have to defend it. At 7:30, Ethan returned. He brought 2 small paintings, abstract canvases full of vibrant colors and energetic gestures. "For the walls," he said almost shyly. "So there's something of ours." It was the most beautiful gesture he could have made. We hung one in the foyer and one in the kitchen. Suddenly the house breathed differently. At 8 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. It was Teresa, impeccable as always, with a bouquet of seasonal flowers. "For the hostess," she said, her smile a tacit sign of support. Minutes later, Catherine arrived. I saw her on the video intercom adjusting her knit sweater, looking at the facade with a mixture of disdain and greed. In the elevator, she kept her back straight, but her eyes couldn't help but widen as she entered the foyer. She scanned everything with a quick professional gaze, evaluating, comparing, and undoubtedly finding herself at a disadvantage. She didn't say hello, just nodded her head. Jason was the last. He arrived with a wolfish grin, dressed in a suit too flashy for the occasion. "Well, well, impressive, Erica. My congratulations, Ethan. Brother, it seems you've landed on your feet." "Sit down, Jason," Ethan said without greeting him. His tone was sharp. We sat in the living room. The space was so large that the group seemed lost. I stood leaning against the fireplace to have a certain visual advantage. Ethan stood by my side. Opposite us on the sofa was Catherine with Teresa beside her in an armchair, and Jason brazenly occupying the center of the other sofa like a king. "Well," I began, breaking the charged silence. "Thank you for coming. I think we're all tired of misunderstandings and half-truths, so I thought it would be best to clear everything up once and for all, here where we can all see and hear." "An excellent idea," Jason said, rubbing his hands together. "Transparency. That's what this family needs." "Shut up, Jason," Catherine said unexpectedly. We all turned to look at her. She was pale, but her gaze was fixed on me. "Erica is right. This is unsustainable. I came to listen." Jason shot his mother a look of surprise and warning, but she ignored him. "Good," I continued. "Let's start at the beginning. Yes, I am Erica Astor Mendoza. I inherited this house and other assets from my mother who died 2 years ago. I did not tell Ethan until after the wedding. That was a mistake, a big one. I have acknowledged it and I have apologized. He has decided to forgive me and give our marriage a chance. That matter, therefore, is between the two of us." "A very convenient mistake," Jason muttered. "Jason," Teresa said in a calm but firm voice, "let her speak. The second point." I went on, fixing my gaze on Catherine. Catherine asked me to pay rent to live in your house. For me, that was the signal that you would never consider me part of your family on equal terms. That's why I left. That's why I revealed what I revealed. I reacted out of pride and pain. But I am not here today to apologize for that. I am here to make it clear how things are going to be from now on." Catherine opened her mouth to speak, but I cut her off, raising my hand. "Wait. You'll get your turn. But first, the third point." I looked at Jason. "You, Jason, have tried to emotionally blackmail me. You have insinuated that I should finance your businesses. You have lurked outside my front door, and you have consulted a lawyer to see if you could touch my inheritance. That ends now. You will not receive a single dollar from me. You will not use my last name for any contacts. And if you ever come near my home or my place of work again without my permission, I will call the police. And I have an excellent lawyer who will ensure that any insinuation or threat you make has consequences. Is that clear?" The silence was absolute. The rawness of my words, the cold legal tone hung in the room. Jason turned red, then pale. "Are you threatening me?" "I am informing you of the rules," I corrected. "This is not your playground, and my inheritance is not your prize." "You're a greedy, vicious bitch," he spat, getting up. "You think because you have money you can trample on this family? You came in here lying, you snuck in, and now you throw it in our faces that we're not good enough for you." "Enough, Jason," Ethan shouted, taking a step forward. Erica is right. You only see the money. You've been sniffing around since day one. Do you really care about me? Or just what you can get through me? Of course I care about you. You're my brother, Jason yelled, but his voice sounded false. But she has you blinded. Don't you see she's isolating you from your family? Soon she'll ask you to sign a paper renouncing everything and she'll leave you on the street. That's a lie, I said with glacial calm. There is not and will not be any such paper. Ethan is my husband. What's mine is ours. But ours means him and me, not the extended family. You see, Jason turned to Catherine looking for an ally. You see, Mother, she's excluding us. She wants to keep Ethan and everything else and leave us out. That's her revenge for the rent thing. Catherine stared at her hands clasped tightly in her lap. When she looked up, she didn't look at Jason. She looked at me, and then at Ethan. There were tears in her eyes. But also something else, a painful clarity. Jason, shut up, Jen, she said, and her voice trembled. Please just shut up. Mother, I said shut up. Her shout, unusual for her, startled all of us. She took a difficult, deep breath. He's right about one thing, Ethan, she addressed her son. Erica is isolating you, but not out of malice, out of protection. Her eyes met mine. And I isolated you, Ethan, for years, for fear of losing you, for fear of being left alone. That's why I clung to the house, to the rules. And that's why I asked Erica for the money. It wasn't about the money. It was about showing who was in charge, so she would know that in my house I made the decisions. A tear slid down her cheek. And look at the result. I've achieved the very thing I feared. You've both left. The room fell silent. Even Jason seemed speechless, watching his main ally crumble and in her crumbling prove him wrong. Mom, Ethan said, his voice cracking. He took a step toward her but stopped. No. Let me finish. Catherine wiped her tears with a finger, composing herself with a visible effort. Erica, you're right. I treated you badly. I didn't welcome you. I saw you as a threat, not as the woman who makes my son happy. And when I found out about your inheritance, I was even more scared because I thought you would use it to take him away from me forever. She sighed. But last night, talking to Teresa, she made me see that what I was doing was repeating what my mother-in-law did to me. And I don't want to be that woman. Jason stood up, furious. I can't believe this. Now you're taking her side. After everything we talked about. I'm not taking anyone's side, Jason, Catherine said with infinite fatigue. I'm taking my son's side and his happiness. And if his happiness is here with her, then I will have to learn to accept it and to respect his wife. It was surrender. Not a happy surrender, but an exhausted, painful, yet real one. Ethan walked over and knelt in front of his mother, taking her hands. Mom. No, it's okay, she said, stroking his face. It's okay, son. I've been a fool. Jason watched the scene as if it were a frame from a movie he detested. His plan was unraveling before his eyes. His mother was capitulating. His brother was pulling away, and the prize, the inheritance, was slipping from his grasp. This is pathetic, he spat. So you're all just going to grovel before the queen of the townhouse. Fine, count me out of this farce. He headed for the door, but before leaving he turned. But this isn't over, Erica. My brother's little phase is temporary. Blood is thicker than water. And money always shows people's true colours in the end. We'll see how long this idyllic romance lasts, when our hack painter loses his charm and you get tired of playing the understanding wife. Jason, get out of my house. I said without raising my voice. Now. He shot me one last look of pure hatred and left, slamming the door behind him with a bang that echoed through the entire house. The tension deflated, leaving an exhausted void. Catherine was still crying silently. Teresa got up, went to the kitchen, and returned with a glass of water for her sister-in-law. "I think that's enough for today," Teresa said softly. "Catherine, would you like me to take you home?" Catherine nodded weakly. She stood up, leaning on Ethan. Before leaving, she stopped in front of me. "Erica, I don't expect you to forgive me, but can I come back someday? For coffee, if without demands, without judgments." I saw Ethan look at me with a silent plea in his eyes, and I saw the proud, broken woman before me. It wasn't friendship, it wasn't affection, but it was a beginning, a necessary truce. "Yes, Catherine, you can come back whenever you want." She nodded, another tear falling, but this time perhaps it was one of relief, and she left, leaning on Teresa. When the door closed, I sank onto the sofa, trembling. The adrenaline was dissipating, leaving me wiped out. Ethan sat beside me and wrapped his arms around me. "That was brutal," he whispered into my hair. "But necessary," I said, sinking into his embrace. "Your mother. I didn't expect that." Neither did I. But I think for the first time she spoke the truth without Jason's poison in her ear. "And Jason?" I asked with a shiver. Ethan sighed. "Jason, that's another war. But at least now we're warned. And we're together." "Together," I repeated, and this time the word tasted like victory. Not a victory over anyone, but a victory for us. We had walked through the fire of direct confrontation and had come out the other side wounded, exhausted, but alive and together. The townhouse was still huge and cold. But that night, with Ethan by my side and the ghost of Jason banished at least temporarily, it began to feel a little more like what it was meant to be, a refuge, not a battlefield. The family war wasn't over, but the decisive battle at least had been won. 6 months later, the New York spring unfolded gloriously over Central Park, its green, fresh breath wafting through the open doors of the terrace. The townhouse on Fifth Avenue was no longer a museum. It smelled of fresh coffee oil paint and turpentine, and the basil Ethan had planted in pots along the railing. His paintings weren't just hanging on the walls. They were propped up on the floor, half-finished, next to paint-splattered newspapers. My books were piled on tables. There was a crumpled blanket on the sofa, and in the kitchen, 2 dirty mugs from breakfast. It was a glorious mess. It was life. Ethan, sitting at the terrace table with a sketchbook, looked up and smiled as he saw me leaning against the doorframe. "What? Nothing. I just like seeing you here. It's my home," he said. And this time the word carried no weight of doubt or irony. It was a simple, full statement. The months following the explosive family meeting had not been easy, but they had been clear. We had established steel boundaries with Jason. After his angry exit, he tried one last move, sending his lawyer, Mr. Rojas, with a letter suggesting family mediation to avoid greater harm and ensure harmony and mutual support, which in practice was a veiled request for money. Martha responded with a more forceful letter warning of legal action for harassment and slander if he persisted. Jason, finding himself without his mother's support, and with the real risk of a lawsuit he couldn't afford, backed down. He stopped calling. We learned through Teresa that he had secured a bank loan for his import business at an exorbitant interest rate. That was his path. We had cut ours. Catherine, for her part, kept her word. She came for coffee. An uncomfortable, silent afternoon where only Teresa spoke. Then another, where she timidly asked about Ethan's paintings. Little by little, the ice began to break, not in a torrent of affection, but in a slow drip of respect and cautious distance. She learned to call before coming to not comment on the decor or our decisions. One day, she found a photo album of my mother on the table and, flipping through it, said without looking at me, "She was very beautiful and very elegant. You can see she loved you very much." It was the first disinterested compliment she ever gave me, a small miracle. The real surprise came later. On a rainy afternoon, Catherine arrived with a container of lentil soup. "I just made too much," she mumbled, avoiding our gaze. It was the soup Ethan loved. The three of us ate it in the large kitchen, and for the first time the conversation flowed smoothly, talking about the weather, an exhibition at the MoMA, how expensive tomatoes were. It was normal, a precious, fragile commodity we tended with care. Today, however, was a special day. We had invited Catherine and Teresa for lunch. It wasn't an act of reconciliation because that peace, though tense, had already been achieved. It was more of a celebration of the new normal, and of the news that Ethan and I had been keeping for a week and had decided to share. Catherine arrived punctually with a bouquet of lilies. Teresa, a few minutes later, with a homemade apple pie. The atmosphere was relaxed, even cheerful. Ethan poured wine while I finished plating the paella. "This house is beautiful," Teresa said, looking around with approval. "It has a soul now. You can tell you live in it." "That's because Erica has let this disaster of a painter invade everything," Ethan joked, hugging me from behind. Catherine smiled, a small but genuine smile. "He was always a disaster, but he's her disaster." It was time. Ethan and I exchanged a look. He gave a barely perceptible nod. "Catherine, Teresa, we have something to tell you," I began, putting down the wooden spoon. I dried my hands on my apron, suddenly nervous. "Something good." Both women looked at us expectantly. Catherine held her breath. Ethan took my hand. "We're going to be parents. Erica is pregnant." The silence that followed was brief but loaded. Teresa let out a little shriek of joy and stood up to hug us. "Congratulations. What wonderful news." Catherine, on the other hand, had frozen. Her face was a whirlwind of emotions: surprise, disbelief, joy, and a terrifying fear of ruining the moment. Her eyes filled with tears. "Mum," Ethan said softly, "A... a baby," she managed to say, her voice breaking. "Really, really," I confirmed, feeling the emotion choke me. "We're 7 weeks along. Everything is going well." Catherine then stood up, staggering slightly. She didn't come to hug me. She went to Ethan, took his face in her hands, and looked at him intently. "My boy," she whispered. Then she turned to me. Tears were running freely down her cheeks, but she made no effort to stop them. "Erica, thank you." She didn't say congratulations. She said thank you. And in that word was the entire journey of the past few months. The recognition, the respect, the acceptance. She was thanking me for giving her a grandchild. She was thanking me for allowing her to remain in her son's life. She was thanking me perhaps for the second chance she never thought she deserved. "There's nothing to thank me for," I said. And then I opened my arms. She stepped into them, stiff at first, then with a convulsive hug full of pent-up emotion. We weren't friends, maybe we never would be, but we were family. A strange, scarred family, but with new, stronger foundations, because we knew what it cost to build them. The lunch was cheerful, filled with plans and memories of when Ethan and Jason were little. For the first time, Catherine spoke of her husband, Ethan's father, without bitterness, only with the nostalgia of someone who has begun to make peace with the past. Jason was not mentioned. It was a deliberate absence, an empty space that no longer hurt but simply existed. When they left as evening fell, Ethan and I stood on the terrace, watching the sun paint the treetops orange. "Do you think Jason will find out?" I asked, resting my head on his shoulder. "Probably. New York is a small town. But it doesn't matter anymore. He chose his path." He wrapped his arm around me, resting his hand on my still flat stomach. "This is our path, full of paint diapers and your mother playing the bossy grandmother. Guaranteed." I laughed. "And yours too." "I hope so," he said, his voice soft. "I hope so." I had gained many things in the last few months. I had won my space, my dignity, my strengthened marriage. But looking back, perhaps the most valuable thing hadn't been winning, but letting go. Letting go of the need for approval, the fear of conflict, the idea that to be happy, I needed everyone to love me. I had the ones who mattered now. And I had, for the first time, a home. Not an inherited townhouse, but a home built by hand with love, with truths spoken in time, and with the courage to stand up when necessary, even to the ghosts of one's own blood. Night was beginning to fall over New York. Inside the house in the living room, the painting Ethan had made for me, an abstract portrait of the two of us with strokes of gold over a deep blue background, shone in the last light. Outside, the city bustled indifferent and magnificent. But here on our terrace, with the future growing inside me and the man I loved by my side, there was only peace. The peace that is earned, not given, and that made it indestructible.